Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to let people know that I've gone live. In the meantime, if you've never popped into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And oh my goodness, did I have an adventure today? I look at these experiences as adventures. I paid attention to the characters in the experience, how they interacted in the experience compared to how I interacted in the experience, taking note that we have different levels of investment in the experience. So let me tell you what happened today. So, for those of you who've hung out with me for any length of time, you know my sister Alice is a friend of mine. She's 6 years younger than I am. And we do have some similar interests. And one of those interests is thrifting. We both love thrifting. And that thrifting contributes to my vacation every year. It's how I save my money for my amazing vacation that I take in September. That is my reward, right? That I show up here every day, fresh like a loaf of bread, in sharing those lessons and experiences that I pick up along the way. And today, my sister, I phoned her. I says, "Are we going to be productive humans today?" Right? I felt kind of sluggish. I have Christmas. It's Christmas. We got 1 week till Christmas. I got stuff to do. I got to clean my house because tomorrow is baking day, or tomorrow is supposed to be baking day. But I haven't even started cleaning my house because I've basically just gotten home from my day. So anyway, I got up, slept in. I needed the rest, and if I sleep in, I know it's for a good reason. And I felt really good, but I hadn't showered in a couple of days, so I knew I was going out with my sister. So I sent her a quick text because it was already after 10. I says, "Are we going to be productive human beings and go do our Mondays and get out of the house?" And she says, "Yeah." She says she went out partying a little bit. Well, it wasn't out partying. She went to a presentation. She likes music. Her boyfriend's a musician, and they had some kind of musician marathon going on last night. And yeah, she was drinking samples and stuff. And she drank too much, and she got up a little bit hungover, so she was going a little bit slow, but that's all good, right? For me, it doesn't affect me in any way because, well, I'm not a big drinker, number one. And I should say I did pick up the alcohol for our Christmas Eve party. So I'll let you guys know right now that on Christmas Eve, every single year, we get together here on YouTube and we do a live. And it starts at 7 p.m. Central. And we spend Christmas Eve together. And, not everybody shows up because, there are friend and family events and gatherings. And of course, if you have children, there's preparation and, right, making sure that the kids have got the milk and the cookies out for Santa, and you get them all tucked into bed, and right, you go and put all the presents under the tree. It's a day for family. It's a day for friends. But a lot of us, we are introverted. We are living a life for ourselves, or not, maybe not for ourselves, but by ourselves, right? For me, it's in the lessons. I'm concentrating. I'm doing some backpedaling. I A lot of these ideas that I'm just starting to learn now. There was the possibility of being those lessons that could have been learned decades ago, in all truth, right? That's how I see it anyway. Maybe in the end, we are all meant to be where we are in the moment, but it doesn't stop me from treading because there are parts of me that do feel like I've, right, fallen behind a little bit. That maybe there were some missed out opportunities there, right? But that's not the discussion. So we got two things going on. I know we're picking our word today for next week. I got my book here and my highlighter, but right before we do that, but just to tell you about that experience that I had with my sister. So she picks me up. I spent, I had a nice cup of coffee and I had a really enjoyable shower and I got ready for my day. And just as I got ready, the phone call happened. She says, I'm downstairs. I went, cool, right? And I went downstairs and I jumped in the passenger side car and she says, my steering on my car is not working very good. I think it's gonna go, Cindy. And I said, oh my goodness. Says we didn't have to go out today, right? But it is what it is. And we went off to the first thrift store and spent some time in there. She picked up some jewelry, and I picked up a couple of items for myself too. Another copy of Ice Age that I have already. I wasn't too sure whether I had that Ice Age, right? And Dawn of the Dinosaurs, but when I got home, I already had it. So I have two copies of that one, but there are a few copies that I have two copies of. I love Ice Age, but I know there's a couple of Ice Ages that I don't have yet. I haven't had an opportunity to even see yet, right? Because I gave up on television and I gave up on really going to the theaters and stuff, even though I'm going to really, really try to see Napoleon. I really want to see Napoleon this Christmas. I think it's going to be my Christmas movie. And even though my sister likes to go to Christmas movies, Napoleon is probably not her thing, right? She's probably going to look for something light and with lots of smiles and stuff, which is good too, right? But if I only get to go to a movie every once in a while, right? I sure would like to see that movie, Napoleon. He is somebody who in a way has given me lessons that has through his own example and in his own story um has given me what do you call that, resident residence in some of his ideas, like they feel like they're mine. I resonate with some of those thoughts, and the thoughts itself was one of them, right? Because he was a great thinker and a great strategist, right? And yeah, I find his life to be interesting. I find lots of people's life to be interesting, right? But not everybody gets to have their life, right, portrayed and experienced through a movie. And I'd like to see Napoleon. Okay, so anyway, we went off. We got to the first thrift store. Hi and Dandy picked up a few items. We switched drivers, right? So I was the driver. I was right. She likes to go a certain way, so she doesn't like to drive in different areas. So I got in the car and I took over driving, and we were driving to the next batch of thrift stores, and she goes, Cindy, I need to go to the washroom and I want a cup of coffee. I said, okay, right? There was a Tim Hortons just a mile up the road, right? So we go and we park in the Tim Hortons. We go in and we get our drinks and muffins, right? And we sat there and relaxed a few minutes with our coffees, and then we got back in the car, and right, as soon as I turned to get out of the parking lot, I heard a crack and the steering bar went on the car. I couldn't steer the car at all. I could move forward and I could move backwards. That's the only thing that I could do. So I moved backwards a little bit to get out of people's way. And my sister, she right away she knew it too. She picked me up and she says, I think my steering is going on my car. It's acting really, really bad. She knew already. And I also think she knew when it was going to happen, because parts of her told her it was going to happen by giving her that idea to say, I need a cup of coffee and I need to go to the washroom, right? And that was kind of a miracle in itself, because it didn't happen that, right? The steering didn't go while we were on a main drag, like one of the main drags in the city. And she looked at it as catastrophe and, oh my goodness, what are we going to do now? And I'm just like, thank goodness we're in a parking lot right now. Number one, like, this could have happened out on Portage, and we could have been stuck in the middle of rush hour like we were 2 weeks ago. Remember what I said, right? And I know her how her life goes by how she's feeling in the moment. She's really stressed. So I did everything I could, right? Cartwheels, everything to try and lighten the situation up. And right away she goes into solving mode. She phones her boyfriend. Her boyfriend gives her some ideas. I says, let's just get a tow truck, because no matter what, the car's going to need to get towed, right? And then we'll just jump in a cab and we'll go home. And she's going, well, what do I do for work and stuff? I says, that will all work its way out. Like right now, all you really have, you're concentrating on the future, but concentrate on the moment right now. We need a tow truck. No matter what, the vehicle's going to need a tow. And no matter what, we're going to have to pay for the tow. And I offered to pay for part of the tow. And so she was really smart, because she just went into Facebook Marketplace and she found somebody, right, with a tow truck, he said. So she asked him, and he said $100, and it was almost $100 cheaper than the first quote that she had got from another towing company, right? And he was there really, really fast. But of course, my sister doesn't think it's fast. She's just complaining and grumbling through the whole process. And he gets there, and he turned out to be a super, super nice guy. Not only that, he had the deluxe tow cut trucks of deluxe tow trucks. Like, even I said, oh my goodness, I says, I bet you lots of big companies are always towing companies are asking you to come to work for him, because it was his own truck. He brought it with him from Edmonton. And I had a great conversation, but I was just trying to lighten the situation, because I could just feel my sister. But she broke, right? She broke, because in that conversation and in that drive to take the vehicle back to her house, she found somebody to fix the vehicle, and it was a long-standing problem that was causing her lots of issues. And we were going into winter, right? We're going into winter, and it would be dangerous. So thank goodness again, it's not 40 below zero like it's supposed to be right now. That global warming has made it like early spring here in Winnipeg. If you don't know, I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, right? So we got the car to the garage, and it turned out she thought it was going to be thousands and thousands of dollars, and she's going to resolve a problem, a very big, dangerous problem, for a few $100s, because she found somebody's going to do it for a deal for her, right? And I wasn't stressed by it, because again, it's that amount do I have invested in it, right? And I didn't have any. It was an outing for me. It was an adventure for me. I knew I was getting home, right? I had money for a cab if I had to, right? And she was going to get her car towed home, right? It's not like she doesn't have a few pennies in her pocket. Maybe it might have been a little bit more of a struggle for me. Maybe not today, but on the norm, it might have been, right? And I might not have had that money, and I would have been stuck there, and I would have been truly struggling. And I would have I would have phoned the tow truck, because there wouldn't have been anything else I could have done, right? I don't know anybody who owns a tow truck who could have given me a deal. But through communications and those interactions and some of those relationships that we had, we sure made, right, a sticky situation an experience, right? And at the end of it, my sister said to me, everybody was so nice in this process, and I was such a bio, right? bitch, right? Like, she was just amazed. She says, oh my goodness, and right, I'm home and everything's good, and I might get my car back tomorrow, right? And she was ready, right? She thought she had to buy a new car this was the week. This was the last time that car was going to break down, and she was going to have to break down and buy a new one, which she really didn't want to do, right? For some people, and she's no different. I'm a little bit different because I'm a little bit frivolous with money. Money doesn't mean as much to me because of that experience and that relationship that I had with my father. I got to recognize how important life is, right? I rearranged my actual job that puts the roof over my head, right? In a little thrift store. I only worked there a few days a week so that I can devote a big portion of my life into my own growth and that little bit of paddling I got to do because I think I'm so far behind. But wasn't that neat? And she knew she's like she knows, but she doesn't know, like for me, if that stuff was going on it. I'd be tearing the clues apart. I'd be putting them back together, right? I'd be testing the waters, trying to figure out what it meant. But it was so clear with her. But it was so clear that she mentioned it to me as soon as I got into the car. But I was so anxious to have a little bit of an adventure, right? That we got one. Okay, you guys, we're picking the new word for this week, and we are on word number 20, you guys. We've been doing this for 20 weeks now. Each week we pick a word, we delve into the word every day for the week, Monday to Friday, and we look at it through different perspectives. Sometimes it's my own perspective. Maybe it's an experience I had or a funny story. Maybe it's somebody else's experience. Maybe it's one of the great thought leaders out there that I am very grateful to have been able to stumble on to some of their content and be able to absorb and digest some of this amazing gifts in that knowledge. And even if it's not in topics that I'm interested in, to have that backup and to know that it is of interest to somebody and somebody is on it, even if it's not me, right? So today, the first day that we pick our word, it's just a first perspective. It's what comes to my mind, the first thing that comes to my mind when we get the word, the first impression, and then I just kind of flow with it from there. But today is first impressions, and you never know. We've already done 20 words now, so there is going to be points where we are going to get the same word again. And remember what I said, we can either have the choice to delve into that word again for the whole week, or we can do this again and pick a word that we haven't had before. Okay, you guys, here is the word. Nervous. Oh my goodness. We got understanding, you guys. And when we see understanding, well, the first thing that comes to mind is all the different ways that we observe, we absorb, we digest, we realize, we just know, right? Understanding. It is a hard one, isn't it? Because it's kind of on what side of the fence are you on, right? That understanding. If you're a truth seeker, then you're kind of moving forward with that understanding, right? Sometimes when you're introverted, we do a lot of that introspection. I know I do that too. A lot of that deep inside, right? Like I said, tear it apart, put it back together. Sometimes, you guys, I wake up in the morning and it's just there. It's just there. And I don't question it because I understand the feeling of an understanding, right? A realization, a knowing. Um, it's not a belief. It isn't a belief because it's truth, right? And maybe belief. I don't belief just doesn't seem so no option, right? Like an understanding is a truth and there's no questioning it, right? Like there shouldn't be a word belief to it because it's just fact, right? Now I'm thinking about this word belief and I'm thinking, but some people wouldn't feel that way. Why? Because they don't believe when it comes to them, right? Like my sister knowing that that car was going to break down. She knew it. As soon as I got in the car, it was the first thing she said to me, right? And it was just a miracle that we were on that main drag and she decided she needed a cup of coffee and she needed to go to the washroom. And so it happened in a parking lot. And so we comfortably were able to sit there and wait for the tow, and he was comfortably able to hook us up. And he even gave us a ride home. We didn't even have to come up with the $20 or $30 it would have cost us to take a cab home because we didn't listen to our intuition. So maybe this is where belief lays, is because when we do get our understandings, and if that's the case, I have to say I'm grateful that I know them as understandings. I know them as truths, right? I know them as facts. I know them as knowings because if there is a circumstance where somebody, and I give it you lots of people do, just like my sister, right? They have these understandings and they have these knowings, but they chalk it to something else, or right, being the know-it-alls, right, being the dictators of their own life, making their own choices and not letting nature have a say, right? I know that things come into our paths that we don't expect. It happens all the time to me, so I've know how to ride those waves and stuff. But when it comes to those unexpected things, when it runs in conflict with what my understandings are, my understandings will always win. Whereas somebody who would need faith and belief, right, they're second guessing themselves. That was a great example, I would have to say, right? My sister second guessed herself, and she could have been in a sticky situation 100%. I wouldn't have left her side during the process of resolving it, right? And it resolved so easily. A few dollars, but in the end, it's going to save her a lot of money because it's not as big of a problem as what she thought, because the person who told us was an actual licensed mechanic and he knew exactly what was going on with her vehicle. And secondly, because right now we have that early spring kind of feel, or that really early or late fall kind of feel in our weather, it's the perfect time to have this happen to her, because another couple of weeks we are going to be full force into winter. And if it happened, and it would have happened, right, it might have been a different story. She might have been by herself. She might have been totally panicked, and she might not have had anybody to buffer. I was doing a lot of buffering. She wouldn't have had anybody to buffer that panic in her. And when she gets in that way, she's boss. Right? She runs the show, and it doesn't matter who's there to help her. They are all under her direction, and she will designate out of the problem. I do it. I do it too. I designate out of the problem. I know the strengths of, I do it at work for the most part because I have people that I work with and stuff that look to me for that designation because they don't always know what to do. But if you want to get through a good day and if you want to make sure that you're having good sales, you want to second think, or what do you second think, foresee all the little obstacles to the best of your ability, and you see it as kind of a path. How do you get to this from here, right? But if you don't have anything buffering all those rough spots in between, oh my goodness, right? It's like a ping pong, right? She would have got the job done, but it would have cost her more money. She would have been even more stressed out. And because she was more stressed out and upset, she would have been doing lots of grumbling, right? And we know where that gets us, right? What you think about is realized. And once she gets herself into that state, it's really hard to come out of, right? It's almost like a headache. When you get a little bit of pain, you go, oh, I get a headache, I got a big head. Oh, it doesn't get worse. I hope it doesn't get worse. I hope it doesn't get and the next thing you know, you got a 3-day migraine, right? Because what you think about is realized, right? And then it gets so bad that you're just so weak that you just can't do anything better. And then you could just say, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's going to get, and then you pull yourself out that way because again, what you think about is realized. Okay. So we got our 20th word today. We got this word understanding. And, you know, I'm very much a realist in my life, but I've realized that being a realist is unrealistic because when you look at the evidence, when you really immerse yourself in the experience, when you take in lessons and then those lessons being the prerequisites of the next lessons, it's slowly like saline drip, right? It goes into your system, and it's in my baby steps that I pick up the understandings that what you think about is realized. So I practice that, right? So when we get into stress, well, I was stressed. I don't want to hear my sister cranking. She was ready to punch me up the side of the head. I was so optimistic. I even said to her, I said, oh, Alice, I know, I'm probably driving you a little bit bonkers, but I said, this is going to help. And then she's talking to her friend or to her boyfriend on the phone as we're in the truck getting driven home with the car on the back of the flatbed, and she's on the text, and then she puts the phone in front of my face, and then she's saying, "Oh, Cindy's here chatting up the driver and stuff," because she was just sitting there with just a scowl on her face, just not saying anything. She was just more immersed in the moment. I immerse myself in the moments. There, right? Believe me, I get my moments. But the thing is, I'm learning that when I get in those moments, that my state of mind is everything, right? And if I just keep saying everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay. Oh my goodness, this is so easy, right? We're going to be home in no time, and next thing you know, right? Everything always works out that way, right? And these were lessons that I had to learn, and it took years for me. Literally, it took me years to learn these lessons. And I don't got them down packed, right? I still go into those panic modes and those worry states, right? Where I figure I have to jump in and sort it all out or it's not going to get sorted. but I'm a lot better than I was because I know now that, those understandings will find a way to be realized through the conversations, through the experiences, through the adventures, through the mishaps, through those dynamic relationships that we have, and through those things that we don't understand, right? Because we just haven't gotten that lesson yet. And we might never get that lesson in our lifetime. Maybe not even the next, maybe like 100 lifetimes, 20 generations down the road, right? We'll finally understand. It's part of why I don't attach myself, right? And even though this word belief doesn't have a place in my understandings, in my truths, right? In my truths, there are other things that, like my sister, right, with those that panic part that I have, and and that disattachment in my religious or spiritual ideas, because I'm such a realist, right? That I have to give credit to what I don't understand. And what I don't understand, I don't know. I haven't got that I haven't got that lesson yet, but I'm going to just keep moving forward with the lessons that I have, right? And the lessons that I will have, because I understand those will just be the prerequisites for the lessons down the road, right? My sister just has not gotten that lesson yet. But I sure as hell pointed it out to her, and she gave it some thought. I could tell that she was right, oh, right, like, right. She'll give it some thought. She'll give it some thought. Okay, you guys, it's time for some din din, time for some lessons, time for a fresh cup of coffee, and I'll be back tomorrow. This is the 7 days till Christmas. Isn't that amazing? That in 7 days we'll be in Christmas. I picked up alcohol. I picked up some tequila. I picked up some banana liqueur, and I picked up some Kahlua. Well, it's not Kahlua, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing, just a different company. And we're going to have electric monkeys. That's my cocktail for Christmas Eve. And if you want to come join our pajama party, Christmas Eve party, 7 p.m. Central. I'll mention it every day up until Friday, and I hope one or two of you will join us, because it is a really, really nice time, right? It is a really nice time. And sometimes we don't necessarily need it to be a nice time, but sometimes, right, just to be included in something, that's a nice time in itself, right? And if it happens, and great, right? And if it doesn't, well, at least you weren't alone on Christmas Eve, right? Everybody's welcome. It takes all kinds to make the world. And I look forward to experiencing you in the conversations. Or not, just come in and watch, right? Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. See you tomorrow. What? Here we go.